Hello, everyone. I'm Captain Logan, and it's not Spawn year. It is day 54 of my comic review video day calendar. And today we're going to talk about an infamous comic. So it's 1997, and we have done everything we can think of up to this point to make Superman relevant again and sell comic books. We've killed him off and brought him back to life, which was the biggest event in the early 90s in mainstream superhero comics and changed the face of the industry forever, for better or worse. I talked about that on the first day of Not Spawn Year when I reviewed Superman 75, Death of Superman being one of my all-time favorite things in comics and one of the big reasons that I got into comics in the first place, near and dear to my heart. And then we married Superman off earlier in this year, or 96, 97, just before this comic comes out, which was initially what Jurgens and Simonson and those guys wanted to do with Superman, finally let Clark and Lois get married, but they weren't allowed to do that because of the Lois and Clark TV show. And now that show has ended and all bets are off, so they put out the Superman Wedding album, which is actually a surprisingly good comic, and perhaps I'll review that later in the year. I have been doing a lot of Superman and from this era, but I might consider doing that. And then, right after that, we decided to do a massive status quo change with Superman again. Totally unfair to Lois Lane and Clark, certainly like days or weeks after they get married, and we get the infamous, what I feel like is nobody's favorite Superman thing, the dreaded blue Electro costume. And that is what we're talking about today. This is Superman 123, and this is the first appearance of this costume. So it's a key issue. I don't know what this is worth, and it's probably, even at this point, not worth all that much, because this was supposed to be a huge game-changing deal, but we've gotten too gimmicky at this point with Superman. We're trying to keep it relevant. We're trying to keep the Death of Superman-ness of it all alive, so we gotta make sure the other shoe drops right after Superman finally attains kind of the pinnacle of his happiness, and we do it in the least pathos-driven way humanly possible. This whole thing is just about doing something different that looks like a big deal, that looks like a collector's item, and will sell books. And it feels a little desperate, no disrespect to Dan Jurgens. I don't hate this comic. This isn't the worst thing ever, but the design I always thought was quite bizarre. I know I'm not alone on that, and it really plays kind of like that the Superman did, that like, this is definitive, this is it, we're not going to come back from this, this is what Superman is like now. And if you've not looked at this, you're not familiar with this, the idea is suddenly Superman is cut off from the solar powers, or from the rays of the sun, can't get his powers, I think. And it's been a long time since I've looked at this, and this doesn't recap much of that, but I think that was supposed to be the idea, and his abilities start morphing. His chemical makeup changes, and he begins turning into pure energy, and that's first recognized by Superman and Lois when bullets, instead of bouncing off of Superman, go right through him. And so something is wrong with his chemical composition. And at the same time, he is fighting this mysterious monster, or a being from another world that everyone is calling a monster, that might be the next Doomsday. Ooh, it's not talked about that way, but it's really clear that that's what we're doing. And Superman is trying to deal with this creature while at the same time trying to stay in existence and not phase out into another reality or something. And everywhere he goes, he's wreaking havoc with his new electricity powers that he can't control. He's completely unstable, doesn't know what to do with himself. And like with Death of Superman, very nearly doesn't make it, doesn't come back from this. And for a minute, it's actually more dire, even though tonally this feels a lot less bleak and a lot more kind of lighthearted and just silly fun, and not really about very much. Then Death of Superman, it's it's very throwaway. It doesn't feel like the stakes are all that big here, even though Superman very nearly blinks out of existence. But it's not like Death of Superman where there's any weightiness to it. Part of that is because, kind of like with Death of Superman, you know what's going to happen because you've seen the covers, so you're just waiting for this. And whether or not you like this costume, by the way, I do think this is kind of a neat cover. I like the minimalism of it, that it's just the Electro Superman kind of darkening kind of brightening a dark area. It's all black, and that lets you see this in all of its glory, if you want to call it that. And I think this might be glow in the dark, because the white parts of the costume were raised on the cover. I'm just realizing this. I should have turned off the lights and seen if this glows in the dark. But anyway, I digress. So Superman starts to realize just how much his powers are changing, and as he is beginning to lose himself, he's also starting to figure out how to control some of the changes to his physiology. And this page is kind of funny because he goes, "Oh, I can't see anything. There's just these flashes of colored light everywhere. What do I do?" And he goes, "Oh, it's probably just part of my chemical composition changing. I know, if I just concentrate real hard and look out of my eyes differently, whatever that means, I'll be able to control my sight and be able to see." And just as he does that, it's very, very vague about it. He just goes, "I'm going to look differently. Oh, I can see now." There's something really kind of golden age about this whole thing. And in fact, Superman Red, Superman Blue, which all this ultimately leads up to, where Superman splits off into two different Supermans, is actually a throwback to an imaginary story that happened in the Golden Age. And so Jurgens might be tapping into that flavor here. And the problem is it's still so connected to the more serious, relatively. There's plenty of goofy stuff that happens in the early 90s Superman comics, don't get me wrong, but the relatively more serious stories that we had early on, that it starts to feel like a TV show that's gone for too many seasons, or like it's kind of degenerating into self-parody a little bit. But anyway, so Superman's looking out of his new eyes, and in one page is able to control his eyesight, and then he almost gets punched by the creature at the bottom of the page. And it will turn out that this creature, who is named Scorn, in a really silly way. Let me mention this real quick. So on this page, you've got Bibbo and a couple of other people. And is Bibbo a cop now? I either forgot about that or I missed the memo on that, because he looks like he's wearing a cop's uniform with that hat. And anyway, he's like, "Oh, we got to save Superman somehow." Superman's like pure energy and nobody can touch him right now, but Bibbo's going to do, I don't know, something. And everybody's yelling and people can't hear over each other. And so somebody says, "Oh, he's got these crazy horns." And then somebody else goes, "Oh, I didn't hear you right. Did you say Scorn?" And then on the very next page, we get a, is that earlier or later than this? We get a news broadcast where the news anchor says, "So this monster, whose name is Scorn," and I'm like, really? We did that again, Dan Jurgens. And I think Jurgens wrote the issue that named Doomsday too, maybe. I forget. But we do exactly the same thing with Doomsday, where some kid goes, "Oh no, it's Doomsday." And then Superman goes, "Oh, I heard this kid say Doomsday. I guess that's what we're going to call the creature now. It's Doomsday." This is the kind of thing that is plaguing and has been plaguing Superman or superhero movies, for years. We have this kind of silly throwaway origin for a name. Somebody has to misunderstand someone saying something, or just like out of the blue go down a list of things. "Oh, let's call it this. No, that sounds, how about this thing?" And like, characters can't name themselves. They can't just have a name Really, Dan Jurgens? All right. So now this guy is called Scorn. This doesn't come from this issue, but it will turn out that Scorn, who's this mysterious character, we don't know what his motivations are, why he's here. We just know that he's fighting a Superman. He comes from the bottled city of Kandor, and it will turn out that he is a benevolent character who is just trying to help Superman, I guess, and ends up being an ally that helps him out quite a bit later on. But I don't remember why he's fighting Superman initially here. He just keeps punching on him. And then after that, he's going around trying to help people and doesn't understand why everybody's scared of him. Maybe that's because they saw you punching Superman for no reason on TV. Scorn, that's your name now because you have horns and somebody misunderstood that wrong. Or somebody misunderstood that. So that's kind of amusing, accidental, probably foreshadowing, by the way, is he's this misunderstood character, and his name comes from a misunderstanding about his horns. Okay. Meanwhile, Lex Luthor goes, Superman has an hour to live because he's disappearing. He's pure energy. He's going to wind up in another dimension. So he's going to phase. So I have two choices, and I kind of like splitting up his face at the bottom here as he's talking to his wife now. He's married the Contessa, and he has a wife who apparently it's a secret marriage, and some people think he's married, but they don't know for sure if he is, and I don't know why he's married in secret, because she's representing him all the time, but okay. This is a Lex Luthor status quo that I'm not super familiar with and don't remember. But anyway, so Lex goes, well, I have two choices, as always. I can save Superman, or I can let him die or kill him on purpose. And the question is, which one benefits me more? And of course, he's being the master manipulator. He is always doing things to benefit him, so he's not going to help someone unless somehow it helps him, and that's ultimately what he does. And the big mystery is, what is Lex going to get out of this? And again, I haven't read this in a long time, and I've never read this whole story, so I don't know what that is. But he sends the Contessa, like, he knows how to solve this problem. He could do the whole containment suit himself, apparently. And he says, oh yes, to the Contessa, easily, no problem. I could save Superman. The question is, should I? And then they apparently decide off panel that he's going to, because she shows up to Emil Hamilton, who is trying to put together a containment suit for Superman to keep him in our dimension and make it so that he can keep using his powers, and which have changed some now because he's pure energy. Such a weird choice to do with Superman. And I guess the whole idea is supposed to, by the way, be because on the cover it's ready for the next century. Like we've got to update Superman. We got to make him cooler. Like the red and blue with the cape and the tights, or at least this is still kind of tights, but the trunks and everything, that is to the 20th century. And getting into the 21st century, he's got to have some kind of like high-tech theme. And his just being made of energy doesn't make him technology, but I guess his suit is a technological suit. By the way, when the Contessa shows up, so she shows up with the fabric that is going to be necessary to make this containment suit. And Emil Hamilton is able to get the circuitry he needs out of Superman's robot. I think it's Kalex. And he's really vague about it. He's just like, I need these wires. It's got to be Kryptonian wires for some reason. And then he gets into the robot. Oh, good. I have everything I need here to put together this suit in half an hour. Okay. But we don't have the fabric we need. And then the Contessa shows up, and there's a little bit of a debate about whether or not we should trust Lex Luthor because, again, he's always solving problems, expecting something in return. And Lois Lane tells a story about how in previous issues, I don't know how far back this goes, how recent this is, Lex blackmails Lois into having a relationship with him, which is real screwed up, in order to save her mother, I think, or her father. Yeah, her mother, who was dying. And so she's like, I know what kind of man Lex Luthor is. And then the very next panel, but I say we use the fabric because, she just got married to Superman and doesn't want him to die. And that's fair enough, but the way the speech reads, at first glance, it's almost like, yeah, we can't trust Lex Luthor. We shouldn't do this. You know what? Let's do it anyway. Anyway, there's this really amusing line that the Contessa has at the top of this page where she says, as always, we at LexCorp are on the cutting edge of new scientific technologies, which seems a little redundant to me. Scientific technologies. Okay. So they put together the containment suit, and Scorn, meanwhile, is on a boat. He's going around looking for something, and a man has a heart attack and falls over and maybe is going to die. And he says, our death and destruction, everywhere that I go. Am I causing that everywhere I go? Apparently, because you're a big scary monster, and everybody is. The way it's supposed to read is he's misunderstood, and he's being, everybody's judging a book by its cover. But again, I don't know why he's fighting Superman. There's probably some kind of a reason, but I haven't read any of this in a long time, and I don't remember what that is. So anyway, then Superman gets in his containment suit, and, we're supposed to be worried about him, that he's going to die, but, I'm not really, because the whole setup for this is, let's give Superman a new costume. That's the whole point of it. And so he gets in his new suit, and he zooms off, and he figures out, he loves the look of it. I don't, but whatever. He's got a blue face now, because, he's like Captain Planet. He even kind of has Captain Planet here. And then he goes, oh, if I concentrate real hard, a lot of concentrating. If I concentrate real hard, I can phase completely into this reality. And now he's somehow totally corporeal, and he's not behaving like an energy being. And he's naked because he forgot to put clothes on. And I don't understand how he morphs back and forth. I don't get that. He needs the containment suit in order to keep himself in our reality, but he can also phase sort of out of it or phase it to make himself solid. And I do remember that later on, he'll realize that as Clark Kent, he's completely vulnerable, which is kind of an interesting thing for him to have to deal with, where he doesn't have powers. Basically it's morphin time, right? He doesn't have powers when he's not wearing or when he's not, Superman, but he does have powers when he's Superman. He doesn't have powers when he's not. So anyway, then Lex goes, "Oh, good job, wife. He's playing right into my plans now." And so again, I kind of like the mystery of why exactly Lex is helping him. And then he goes to his parents' house, who are not remotely fazed by the fact that he can phase in and out in other dimensions. I guess they know that something is going on with him, but you'd think that they would be more concerned for him. Like, how are you going to be a normal human being anymore? I get that he's able to phase back and forth between this and regular Clark Kent somehow, but they don't actually know that. They only see him in his pure energy form wearing this suit, but they're not concerned about it. I guess they just trust Superman. He seems, their kid, he seems happy, so they're happy, and look how happy they are. And then they go, his mom, Martha Kent, goes, "Oh, you're gonna need the S on your suit. Not a cape. I'm not worried about that anymore." I guess what would a energy being need with a cape? I don't know. But she's not on about that. But she says you need an S on your chest, and so you go, okay, I'm gonna draw that on, energy draw it. I don't know how he does that. And then he flies off in a big double page spread, which is kind of fun. Let me see if I can. Oh wow! Somehow I don't have the whole. This digital version doesn't have the entire page. I'll flip this open and show it to you. That actually does sort of work as a single full page spread, but it is a double page spread. So let me show you this, because I think it's one of the cooler bits of artwork here, even though this is not a great looking comic, I don't think, but there it is. That's your 2-page spread. And then at the end, Scorn is still all, "Oh, woe is me, nobody understands me." but I just saw a picture of Clark Kent, and maybe that's Superman. I like that he's smart enough to put that together, but nobody else is. Okay. Anyway, so that's that one. If you ever wondered how he gets into this costume, there it is. Isn't that absolutely thrilling? Yeah, we've at this point, again, with all respect to Jurgens, I like some of his stuff. He's kind of hit and miss, but these guys have kind of lost the script a little bit with Superman. Anyway, like I said, I might do the wedding album later in the year. I could possibly come back and revisit this and do the Superman Red, Superman Blue one shot that introduces them. I think I own that. But in the meantime, thanks a lot for watching. Hope you enjoyed this review, and I will see you again tomorrow with another one. I was Captain Logan, and happy reading.